Good morning, everyone. I hope you're having a great day and that you're enjoying your time at home. Now, today this is going to be a relatively short lesson on case studies. Now, we'll talk more about this whenever you're in class tomorrow, but like case studies are a form of research done in psychology that can be very interesting and provide some really unique opportunities, but they also have some very big drawbacks. So let's get started. Now, case studies often examine one individual in depth in the hope of revealing things that are true of all of us. Again, it's hard to say how this will work. I mean, much of our early knowledge about the brain came from case studies of individuals who suffered a particular impairment after damage to a certain brain region. So Jean Piaget taught us about children's thinking after carefully observing and questioning only a few children's thinking, or a few children. So you don't necessarily have to have a large group, but it helps to have a large group. And studies of only a few chimpanzees revealed their capacity for understanding and language. Now, intensive case studies can often be very revealing. They will show us what can happen, and they can often suggest directions for further study. So they can kind of provide a roadmap, but they don't necessarily need to be your last line of defense or your last resort. Now, that being said, there are some definite cases. So, there's something to consider. Now, some case studies that one that we're going to talk about a little bit more later is one involving Phineas Gage, who was a foreman on a railroad work crew who had a 13-pound steel rod blown through the front of his brain in an accident, but he didn't die. Instead, he suffered from brain damage. That was the equivalent of a frontal lobotomy, which is where they take, literally a piece of your brain out. And this is an operation that could not be ethically performed on a healthy person. So you couldn't actually attempt this without really causing some problems. So this is like a freak accident. It's like, hey, there's an opportunity here. So by observing Mr. Gage, scientists obtained information concerning physical and psychological changes in a person with a frontal lobotomy. So they were able to understand and learn things that they may not have been able to figure out otherwise. Now, the thing about this also leads us to, so this is a bunch of research methods that we're talking about. So this leads to naturalistic observation or field work. Okay. So this ranges from watching chimpanzee societies in the jungle, as you can see in the picture here, to unobtrusively videotaping and later systematically analyzing parent-child interactions in different cultures, to recording students' self-seating patterns in the lunchrooms of multiracial schools. So, you're just observing, you're watching. It does not explain behavior, okay? It describes it. So nevertheless, descriptions can be revealing. We used to think that humans were the only species that were intelligent enough to use tools. Then naturalistic observation revealed that chimpanzees sometimes insert a stick into a termite mound and withdraw it, eating the stick's load of termites. So, they figured out essentially a spoon. And Jane Goodall, who was a famous chimpanzee explorer or, scientist, or she is, said that observations made in the natural habitat helped show that societies and behavior of animals are far more complex than we ever previously supposed. Okay. Now, the book also gives some examples about using natural observations of children to help, to see gender differences in adults. So, you can see all these differences. But, just some things that, some fun facts here. Just from making observations, people have determined that humans laugh 30 times more often in social situations than in solitary situations. So laughing is almost a social activity. And that when you do laugh, 17 muscles contort our mouth and squeeze our eyes. So 17 muscles are working in your face. And that we emit a series of 750 millisecond vowel-like sounds that are spaced about 1/5 of a second apart. And that's just from observation. Now, Some of the advantages of, like this, and especially with case studies, and is that you can study unethical topics. For example, while it would be unethical to study the effects of imprisonment by actually confining subjects, researchers can gather information by using naturalistic observation in real prison settings. So you can go to a real prison. However, again, disadvantages. It does not explain behavior, it describes it. So it's not telling you why people are doing things, it's just telling you what they're doing. Nevertheless, descriptions can be revealing. We used to think that humans were the only species that were intelligent enough to use tools. And then naturalistic observation revealed that chimpanzees sometimes insert a stick in a termite mound and withdraw it. So again, that those observations, you learn things. So again, doesn't tell you why, it doesn't give you, it just gives you the cause and effect.
In the following short animation, we will be talking about the naturalistic observation method, an important method in psychology. This method may seem familiar to you because a less formal version of this method is the stuff of nature documentaries and films. Most of the time that you are watching a nature film, you are watching a variation of the naturalistic observation method. You see, naturalistic observation is the secret observation of animals, and as we will talk later, humans, in their natural environments. So every time you are watching a nature show in which the narrator is watching wildlife secretly in nature, like at a watering hole, in the jungle, ocean, or savanna, this is an example of naturalistic observation. Now, psychologists can use a similar method to watch humans surreptitiously in their natural environments. For example, to see how people act in crowds, as at a baseball game, or in church, or during a street demonstration. Remember that like all research methods, naturalistic observations have both strengths and weaknesses or limitations. For example, its greatest strength is that it allows researchers to look at what they are most interested in, real behavior in the real world. However, at the same time, at least with regards to humans, there are of course important limitations with respect to this method. First of all, in particular, we must respect people's privacy. Psychologists can't go creeping through people's backyards engaging in naturalistic observation, but importantly must conduct their observations only in public. A second limitation is that naturalistic observations are good at telling us what people are doing, but not why they are doing these things. For example, around the world, people speak to babies in very similar ways. But naturalistic observation is not very good at telling us why people speak to babies this way.
Okay. All right. That's the end of today's lesson. I hope you got a little something out of this. Now, we'll have an activity related to this tomorrow, so be ready for it. And I hope you have a great day, and I will see you tomorrow.